Valek stood alone in the deep archives of the Galactic Cartography Guild. The lights were dim, the air thick with dust, and the only sound was the soft hum of ancient machines. He moved carefully between old data crystals and display pads, each one showing maps of galaxies, sectors, and wormhole routes. But one map pulled him in more than the others. It was large, glowing in blue light, showing the entire known galaxy with hundreds of civilizations marked with names, colors, and symbols. But then there was a black space, a large dark area at the edge of the map. It had no label, no border, and no data, just a warning in red: do not enter human space. Valek stared at it for a long time. He had seen it before, but today something felt different. He reached out, touched the glowing edge, and the map zoomed in. Still nothing. No planets. No stars. Just darkness. He checked the file. There were no updates for over 400 years. No changes. No exploration logs. No records. That was impossible. How could a place this big remain untouched for so long? His hands trembled a little as he opened older records. He saw mission logs from long ago, fleets that had entered this space and never returned. The last message from one fleet said only 2 words before it went silent: "They're awake." Valek's eyes widened. He rushed to the communication desk and called his mentor, High Cartographer Zorik, a respected elder who had mapped half the galaxy. Zorik arrived quickly, looking calm but curious. "What is it, Valek?" he asked. Valek showed him the map, then the records. Zorik's face turned serious. "You should leave this alone," he said softly. "There's a reason that space is left blank." "But why?" Valek asked. "What's out there?" Zorik was silent for a moment, then said, "Humans." The word hung in the air like a heavy shadow. Valek had heard of them, but only as legends. Creatures from the far side of the stars. Creatures who once burned half a dozen empires to the ground. Then, they disappeared. No one knew why. "Humans are extinct, aren't they?" Valek asked. "No," Zorik whispered. "They just stopped talking." Valek leaned forward. "Then what happened to the fleets that went in?" Zorik shook his head. "No one knows. None came back. That space is marked for a reason. You must respect it." But Valek couldn't let it go. That night he went back to the archive alone. He pulled deeper records, ones even Zorik might not have seen. He found logs from the Zilari Empire, a powerful race that ruled many stars. They had sent a huge fleet into human space 300 years ago. They were never heard from again. The last log was broken audio. A scream, then silence, and then a human voice. "This is your only warning." Valek backed away from the console. His heart beat faster. Who were these people? How could they stay hidden for centuries? Why did the galaxy fear them? The next day, he tried to share his findings with the Council of Worlds. But they laughed. "Old myths. Ghost stories," one of them said. "Humans are just propaganda. You fear shadows." But one warlord, General Drav of the Kulnari Empire, stood up with a grin. "Maybe we should visit this human space," he said. "If it exists, we'll take it. If not, then we remove this nonsense from our maps." Others cheered. Valek tried to stop them. "You don't understand. No one returns." But they ignored him. The fleet was already being prepared. Over 50 ships. The strongest warriors. The best weapons. They launched in 3 days. Valek watched their departure from the observation deck, his hands shaking. Deep in his gut, something felt wrong. Terribly wrong. Days passed. No word from the fleet. The council remained calm. "Signal delay," they said. A week passed. Still silence. Then a transmission came. Just one. It was filled with static and noise. The face of a Kulnari officer appeared, screaming, "They're not dead. They're watching. They're..." Then a crash. The image turned black. Only one word echoed at the end, whispered by a human voice. "Run." The council fell into chaos. Panic spread across systems. Drav's empire shut down all long-range travel. Rumors exploded across the networks. Some said the fleet had been destroyed in seconds. Others said it had been taken, alive. But there were no answers. Only fear. In a secret meeting, Valek was summoned by High Cartographer Zorek. Zorek looked tired. His hands shook. "You were right," he said. "The map must not be changed. It is not empty. It is a warning." Valek leaned forward. "What are they?" Zorek whispered. "They are what happens when you push a species too far. They fought wars not to win, but to survive. They studied our weapons, learned from our mistakes, and then disappeared behind a wall, waiting." Valek stared at the black part of the map again. It wasn't just empty space, it was a cage holding something terrible. And now someone had rattled the bars. Across the galaxy, small, strange events began to happen. Trading ships vanishing near the edges of human space. Satellites going dark. Old beacons lighting up again with human languages. Languages no one had heard in centuries. On one planet, a child's toy began to speak in English. No one knew how it got activated. It said, "They warned you. You didn't listen." On another, a warship AI went rogue. When engineers checked its last command, it said, "Humans have returned," but no ships were seen, no weapons fired, no message sent, just silence. Valek began collecting more stories. A mining colony disappeared in Sector D12, no signs of struggle, just gone. An old listening post received a strange pattern in binary. It translated to, "This space is not yours." The galaxy began to shift. Borders were redrawn. Fleets pulled back. The council argued day and night. Should they prepare for war? Or send diplomats? But no one dared cross the line again, not after what happened to Drav's fleet. Then one day a strange shape appeared in the sky above the planet Urex-5. It wasn't a ship. It was a message. A hologram stretched across the clouds. A simple image of Earth with words around it in every known language. "Keep out." No one knew how it got there. It left in seconds, but every person who saw it felt the same thing. This was not a request. It was a command. Back in the archive, Valek saved all the data. He updated the map himself. Around the black zone, he added one new line: human space. Never cross. As he shut down the console, he looked into the darkness beyond the stars. He didn't know if humans were monsters or protectors. He only knew one thing. They had not been forgotten. They had been waiting. And now, they were watching again. The message came through the darkness like a whisper in a storm. It was weak, broken, and filled with static. But the fear in the voice was clear. Something had gone wrong. Deeply, terribly wrong. Valek listened to the last words of the lost fleet again. His claws tapped the console nervously. He played the message a second time, then a third. The voice was shaking, desperate, and completely unlike the strong warriors who had left not long ago. He wasn't the only one listening. Across the stars, leaders and watchers, scholars and soldiers, all had heard it. Some refused to believe it. Others locked their borders and kept their ships at home. But the few who studied the message carefully knew what it meant. This was not just a failed mission, it was a sign. In a hidden room deep beneath the Galactic Council's main tower, a group of senior advisors met in silence. A single screen showed the last known location of the lost fleet. The map pulsed slowly as if waiting. One advisor finally spoke. They had the strongest ships, the best minds. They didn't stand a chance. Another shook his head. We don't even know what they faced. There are no battle signs, no distress signals, just silence. The oldest among them leaned forward. There's a reason the map ends at Earth, a reason we all agreed to forget. Valek wasn't in that room, but he could feel the same tension. He sat in the archive, eyes wide open, reviewing old signals. As he zoomed into one of the recorded frequencies, he found something strange. A pattern in the static. He adjusted the filters. It was a voice. Calm, cold, human. You were warned. You crossed the line. Now, we are watching. Valek froze. He knew that voice didn't come from the fleet. It came from Earth. It was not angry, it wasn't loud, but it held power. A quiet, steady kind of power that didn't need to shout. The galaxy had many strong species. Some had strength in numbers, others in machines. But humans were different. They had patience. They had memory. And now it was clear they hadn't forgotten. The Council sent a small scout ship to observe from a distance. It didn't enter human space, just stayed near the edge, watching. The ship's captain sent back daily reports. At first, everything was quiet. No signs of activity, no signals, just stars and silence. Then the silence changed. The stars didn't look the same. Navigation tools began giving strange readings. Maps twisted. Lights dimmed. The crew reported, hearing strange sounds through the walls, soft tones that didn't match any system. Then came the lights. Small, fast-moving shadows crossed the edge of the ship's sensors. They weren't large, they didn't attack, but they were there, watching, studying. The captain reported one final message. We are not alone out here. We never were. And then nothing. The ship never returned. The Council shut down all observation missions. The edge of human space was declared off-limits. But curiosity was not so easily stopped. Across the stars, strange reports continued. A trader saw a ship appear and vanish near a forgotten moon. A farmer woke up to find unfamiliar symbols burned softly into the grass behind his house. An old listening station picked up a message in perfect galactic standard. You do not understand us. That is your first mistake. Still, there was no reply from Earth. No fleet, no voice, just moments. Brief, quiet moments that reminded everyone. Someone was watching. Valek received a visitor one evening, a woman in a dark robe. She didn't share her name. She handed him a device and spoke only once. You're not the first to search for the truth. Just be sure you want to find it. Then she left. The device contained recordings, old files, some over 400 years old. They told of the first time aliens met humans. At first it was peaceful, then misunderstandings happened. Small mistakes turned into fear. Fear became conflict. And the humans didn't back down. They didn't disappear. They simply stepped away from the galaxy, built walls, closed the door, and waited. Now, the door had been knocked on, and it had creaked open. Valek sat alone in the dark for a long time. He looked again at the galactic map, at the black space with no name. This wasn't just missing data. It was a message, a silent message that had been there all along. Not everything unknown is empty. Some things are just waiting to be found, by those who forget to be careful. And now, something had noticed them. The silence wasn't quiet anymore. Not in space. Not in minds. Something had shifted. Valek could feel it every time he looked at the old galactic map. The blank space where human territory began no longer looked like an empty zone. It looked like a door. And doors were meant to be. Opened or left alone, he had stopped sleeping much. Not because of fear, but because his mind wouldn't rest. Every old file he opened only gave him more questions. Why had humans stepped back from the galaxy? Why had they never spoken again? And now that their silence was breaking, what did they want? He wasn't the only one thinking about it. On a high-orbit station above the planet Zintar, a research team gathered to examine strange patterns coming from the border of human space. At first, it looked like simple background noise, but one of the young analysts noticed something odd. The signals were not random. They followed rhythms, like old Earth music. Not just sounds, but harmony. As the team listened closer, they began hearing voices. Not in the way one hears speech, but more like memory. It was as if something was speaking directly into their minds, gentle, clear, and without emotion. We remember. The transmission didn't explain anything else, just those two words. And yet, Every person who heard it understood the meaning in their own way. Some felt guilt. Others felt awe. A few felt like they had been seen, completely, deeply, without warning. The station shut down the listening equipment, but it was too late. The message was already echoing across secure networks, into military centers, universities, private research ships. No threats were made, no demands were spoken, but those two words carried more weight than any fleet. Valek was invited to speak to a private gathering of scientists and diplomats. They had all heard about his research, his warnings, and the scout ship that never returned. The meeting was quiet, filled with tension. One elder scholar stood up. "We want to know what you believe," he said. "Not what the data shows. What do you feel is coming?" Valek looked at the group. "I think they were never gone," he said. "They've been here just behind the curtain, waiting, watching us grow, measuring how far we'd go. And now that we've reached for them, again, they're answering." "But why not show themselves?" another asked. "If they're as powerful as the legends say, why hide?" Valek paused before answering. "Maybe they're not hiding. Maybe they're protecting us, or protecting something else. Or maybe they're testing how we react to silence." The room went still. Outside, the stars looked no different. But everyone now looked at that black zone in the galaxy with new eyes. Meanwhile, strange events began happening closer to home. On a planet orbiting just outside human space, a transport crew landed for repairs. It was a quiet, rocky place with no cities, just a small outpost used for mining. When they arrived, they found everything intact: food stores full, equipment working, lights on, but no people. Every room was empty, beds made, machines running, but no sign of the 50 workers assigned there. In the command room, a message blinked slowly on the screen. They were curious. We showed them. No explanation, no sign of struggle, just absence. The crew left quickly, and the planet was sealed off. At the same time, in a deep space station known for communication monitoring, a young technician was finishing her shift when her screen flickered. Lines of text appeared in the old human language, English. She didn't speak it, but the translator worked quickly. The words read, "You see maps, we see memories." Then the station's systems returned to normal, and the message vanished. The technician reported the event. At first, her supervisors thought it was a glitch, but when they searched the logs, they found hundreds of small data packets hidden in their systems, tiny fragments of human history. Images, voices, music. But these weren't from Earth's known past. They were something else. Moments that had never been recorded by galactic observers. Scenes from deep forests, mountain storms, silent ruins under the ocean. They were beautiful, and they made no sense. How had they arrived? Why now? The council was split. Some called for isolation, fearing that attention would invite disaster. Others argued for contact, careful, respectful contact, but no one could agree. And all the while, human space remained silent. One young explorer named Daresh, against orders, flew near the edge. He didn't cross it. He just sat in orbit around an unmarked moon and waited. He sent a message out, unsure if anyone would answer. To whoever is listening, we don't come to claim. We come to understand. He waited 2 days. On the third, a light passed over his ship. No ship, no source, just a glow that moved across the sky. Then a voice spoke in his mind. It was not loud. It was not human. But it felt close. You are not ready to understand us. But we see that you're beginning to try. When Daresh returned, his report caused even more debate. Valek read the words with a deep sense of unease. Not fear, not danger, just the feeling that something much larger than them was waking up, and it was not cruel, it was not kind. It was simply aware. That night, as he closed his terminal, another message arrived on his personal system. It had no origin point, just a few simple words. You stared at the map long enough. Now the Map is staring back. He sat in silence. There were no stars outside his window, just the darkness of space, and somewhere in that darkness, something ancient had turned its gaze on them again. The days grew longer, but sleep became a stranger to Valek. Every morning he woke with a new question pressing against his mind like a heavy stone. The quiet signals from the edge of human space no longer felt distant or mysterious. They felt close, too close. The council's halls buzzed with uneasy whispers. No one dared speak loudly about the Forbidden Zone, that shadow on the galactic map where humans ruled, and beyond which no one dared to go. But the silence was broken. Something was calling. Valek received a sealed message marked urgent. It was unlike any communication he had seen before. The sender's identity was hidden, the source untraceable. The message read, "We are watching, always. The time of waiting ends soon. Prepare." No one knew who we were, but the message chilled every bone in the room. Valek felt it deep in his chest, a weight, a warning, or perhaps a promise. Around the galaxy, ordinary, lives began to change. On quiet planets where children once played under gentle suns, parents whispered tales of strange lights in the sky. Traders spoke of shipments disappearing without a trace. Scientists found their instruments behaving strangely, picking up patterns they could not explain. Valek studied the patterns late into the night. They weren't random. They were a language, a code embedded in the hum of the universe itself. He gathered a small team of trusted scholars, experts in ancient human history, linguistics, and astronomy. Together, they tried to unlock the message hidden in the stars. They worked in a secret lab beneath the council's seat, far from prying eyes. Maps and star charts covered every wall. Screens flickered with streams of data. The air was thick with tension and hope. One evening, as the team struggled with the final part of the code, the room went dark. The screens blinked off. The hum of the machines faded, then softly a voice filled the silence. It was clear, calm, and impossible to ignore. You seek answers, you watch the sky, but answers are not always what you desire. The voice was human, but older, wiser, and filled with something beyond words. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The team froze. Valek felt his heart pound, not with fear, but with a strange excitement. The voice continued. Long ago, humans chose silence to protect what is sacred. You see the map and wonder why the boundary exists. You ask why humans vanished from the stars. The truth is more complex than you can imagine. One of the scholars asked, trembling, "What is the truth?" The voice answered, "We are not lost. We are watching. We are learning. We wait for the day when you too will be ready." A question rose in Valek's mind. Ready for what? There was a pause, as if the voice was considering how much to share. Ready to understand the silence. Ready to walk beyond the map. Ready to meet what lies beyond fear and curiosity. Then the voice was gone. The screens blinked back on. The machines hummed to life. The team looked at one another. No one spoke. But in their eyes was the same thought. The Forbidden Zone was not empty. It was alive. It held secrets that no one was prepared for, and the silence was no longer quiet. Valek knew that from this moment on nothing would be the same. The galaxy waited, and so did he. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright. And beyond the map, something waited, watching, ready. The air inside the council chambers was thick with tension. Word of the mysterious voice had spread like wildfire, and the galaxy was on edge. Valek sat quietly, watching as leaders argued quietly but fiercely behind closed doors. No one wanted to admit how little they understood. "They speak in riddles," one diplomat said, voice low but firm. "What does it mean to be ready?" Valek's mind raced. He remembered the voice's words, ready to understand the silence. But what silence? What truth was hidden beyond the forbidden edge of the map? As the debate raged on, Valek quietly slipped away to the research archives. He needed answers beyond politics and fear. There had to be something hidden in the old records, something that could explain the human choice to disappear and wait. He pulled up ancient transmissions, stories passed down through generations. Some were myth, others fact, but all painted a picture of a people deeply connected to their world and the universe. Humans, it seemed, had once possessed a rare gift, a way to listen to the universe itself. One old recording caught his attention. It told of a place humans called the Heart of Silence, a place beyond space and time, where sound and light ceased, and only thought remained. According to legend, it was a place of great power but also great danger. Valek's fingers trembled as he played the audio. The voice on the recording was soft, but firm. To reach the heart of silence, one must first understand the weight of stillness. It is not emptiness. It is not absence. It is the space where all things begin and end. He paused the playback and looked at the stars outside his window. Could the forbidden zone be this heart of silence? The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Back in the council, rumors began spreading that humans might not only be watching but also testing the galaxy's readiness. Some believed humans had advanced beyond physical form, existing as energy or thought, waiting to emerge when the time was right. Others whispered darker ideas, that the human silence was a warning, that crossing the boundary could awaken forces beyond control. Valek refused to accept fear as an answer. He gathered a small group of explorers, scholars, and diplomats who shared his belief. The galaxy needed to understand the humans, not fear them. Their plan was bold. They would send a small unmanned probe beyond the edge, into the forbidden zone, to collect data. If humans were truly watching, they might allow the probe to pass unharmed. Valek helped prepare the probe personally. It was a sleek, silent ship filled with sensors designed to detect signals beyond normal space. Its mission was simple: observe, listen, and return. As the probe crossed the boundary, the screens in the control room flickered with strange images. Colors shifted, patterns moved in ways no one had seen before. Then the probe sent its first message back, entering the heart of silence. The crew held their breath. Suddenly, the probe's sensors detected a presence, not a ship, not a machine, but something alive and vast. It was as if the entire space around them was watching back. The probe's data showed no signs of aggression. No weapons, no defenses, just awareness. Then the probe recorded a whisper, not through sound but through thought. You have stepped into the stillness. You have chosen to listen. The probe's systems began to overload, images and sounds blending into a flood of memories, not just human memories, but memories from many worlds. Scenes of creation, of ancient stars being born, of life spreading across planets. Scenes of humans walking quietly through forests, listening to the wind and the trees, moments of peace, of understanding. The probe's message ended with one final line. The heart beats for those who respect its silence. Suddenly, the screens went dark. No one could explain what had happened. The probe was lost, but its message remained clear. The Forbidden Zone was no longer just a boundary. It was a living story, a test, a warning, and a promise. Valek looked at the stars and realized that the galaxy was at a crossroads. Would they choose fear and isolation, or understanding and connection? The choice was theirs, and the silence was waiting. The stars above shimmered like distant lanterns, quiet but full of meaning. Valek sat alone in the observation deck, the vastness of space pressing gently against the glass. The events of the past weeks had changed everything. The probe was gone, lost in the heart of silence, but it had left behind something even more powerful, a question no one could ignore. The galaxy was listening now, not just with instruments, but with their minds and hearts. The Forbidden Zone was no longer a place to fear, but a mystery to explore. Valek thought about the voice, calm, wise, patient. You are not ready, but you are beginning to try. Those words echoed in his mind. What did it truly mean to be ready? He wasn't sure yet. But he knew one thing: the journey was just beginning. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, small groups of explorers prepared their own missions. They didn't want to rush or challenge what lay beyond the map, but they wanted to understand, to listen, to learn. On the edge of human space, a young pilot named Lyra stood before her ship, her eyes bright with determination. She had volunteered, for a mission no one else dared take, to travel deeper into the forbidden zone than any before her. Not to conquer, but to discover. Her ship was equipped with the latest technology, designed to move quietly, to blend with the silence of space. She carried no weapons, only instruments and a recorder to capture what she might find. As she launched, the stars seemed to blur, bending around her ship like a slow river of light. Time felt different here, stretched, quiet, and full of possibility. Lyra's first days beyond the boundary were filled with strange sights. Fields of shimmering dust that glowed without any visible sun. Waves of color that seemed to sing softly in the dark. Shadows that moved like memories. Her instruments picked up signals. Not signals like the Council's scanners could detect, but something deeper. Emotions, thoughts, echoes of stories long past. One night, as she rested in her cabin, the recorder softly played a message. It was not in any language she knew, yet she understood. Welcome, Seeker. You walk the path of silence. To listen is to open the heart. Lyra's hands trembled, not from fear but awe. She answered silently in her mind, I come to learn. Days passed. Lyra's ship moved through a place that felt alive. The stars here were different, softer, as if breathing. Suddenly, the ship's systems detected a presence. Not a ship, but a being made of light and thought. It appeared before her like a shimmer in the darkness, calm and radiant. The being did not speak but shared images, scenes of humans long ago, of choices made to protect not just themselves but the galaxy, of silence chosen to heal wounds invisible to others. Lyra felt a deep peace, as if she had found the center of a great circle, where beginnings met endings. The being showed her a vision, a galaxy united not by power or fear, but by understanding and respect. A place where all beings could listen to the silence and find their place in the story. Before disappearing, the being left one final thought in her mind. The journey of 1,000 stars begins with one step beyond fear. Lyra returned to the Council with her story, her heart full of hope. Valek listened, feeling the weight of their shared discovery. The Forbidden Zone was no longer a barrier. It was a bridge, a path forward. The galaxy stood on the edge of something new, a future shaped not by isolation or conflict, but by the courage to listen, to understand, and to reach beyond the stars. And as the first light of a new day touched the windows, Valek knew one truth was clear. The silence was not empty. It was full of promise, the promise of a beginning.